Is this any better? Something has changed. I think you're hearing me now. Yeah. Oh, thank you for telling me. I told like a lot already and nobody was hearing me, so that's a great start. Um, I always have to switch around with cables and everything during the day because sometimes I use my laptop for work and then use my PC for streaming, and it all combines really well. And apparently my computer didn't pick up my microphone yet, so I'll just shortly repeat what I was planning to do. I have this browser extension. It's called Access Tools. I made a first start by following some tutorials, and the tutorials make it so that I can make this for Firefox and Chrome at the same time. What it does is it adds some filters for people to use when they browse, and that should enhance the browser experience. So one of the filters that I have is this really simple one, and I can even remove this line of comment, by the way. It has this init function where it finds all elements with a tab index. And the tab index is used in HTML to set focus to something. So if you have a negative tab index, you can use JavaScript to focus this element. If you have a tab index of 0, you can focus it like any other element that's, of course, focusable. So it could be like a link or a button. That's what 0 does. But when you set a positive tab index, your focus will follow all these positive numbers first before they go to the ones that have 0. So let's say you have let's say you have a tab index of 1 to 6. So it goes to tab index 1, tab index 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that way you can guide the focus through the page. But once it's done after 6, it goes to 0. So the only way to use a positive tab index is if you always keep an eye out on all these values, which I've never seen happen. So in pretty much all use cases, a positive tab index is something you don't want, and it only messes with your page. So I made this really simple filter. Hello Julien, also welcome. So this filter grabs all elements with a tab index, and for each element with a tab index, it checks if it's above 0, and if it is above 0, it sets it to 0. So that's basically the most simple thing I could think of that still adds value to your user experience. And it's a simple init function, and when it runs, it first tries to run it, and if it doesn't run, it logs an error. How does that work? Well, there's a manifest JSON for the extension. It's a JSON file, like many JSON files that we use for so many tools. It has a name, a description, it has a version of the extension and an icon, something I just grabbed off the web for now. And it also has this browser action that we're probably going to remove again. This is what happens when you press the button in your browser, the browser extension button. And the most important part right now is this content script. It says it matches all URLs, so it works on all websites. And it loads this content script.js that we just showed. There's also a folder pop-up that we're probably going to remove. And the folder with the icons, which is one icon right now. And a git ignore because, hey, we're using Git. Yeah, this is Access Tools. Maybe I can just share the link. This is the pull request I'm working on. So it's a tool to enhance the browser experience, or that's the idea. And it doesn't have a settings page, which is something I really want. Because that makes it possible for people to turn filters on and off so they can make their own selection. And there's this tutorial. I'll also share it. This is the tutorial I want to follow some steps from. Yeah. So it says I already read a bit about this, but my microphone didn't work, of course. So you first write an HTML file that displays settings and lets the user change them. So for this, I've got this list of filters that I've added as issues. So I've got a whole lot of ideas of filters that I can add. Enough to do for me. And how do I want to show them? Well, I've got this switch I've made. It's in a code pen. And this is a important part of the work because it's a accessible switch component. And it's really simple, and I think it should be simple enough to be reused for this as well. So the next step is to write a script included from the HTML file that populates the settings page from storage and updates stored settings when the user changes them. That's the nice part of making an extension. You can make use of the storage API of the browser you're tagging along. And then you set the path to the HTML file as the options UI in the manifest JSON. That's what we just saw. And by doing this, the HTML document will be shown in the browser's add-on manager alongside the extension's name and description. Yeah, that's what the manifest is for. Okay. So they're going to show me a simple extension. So this is a bit like the manifest we already have. There's a version of the manifest, there's a name, a version of the add-on, and the content script. In this case, it's called borderify.js. And it also matches all URLs. They have these brackets. I don't think we have brackets, but yeah, should be fine. Yeah, then they tell you what you can put into this Borderify extension. But here comes the part for the settings. So what they say, this is all the same. Then you get options UI. So you set options UI to options HTML. You set the permissions to storage, so it should be able to access the browser storage. And then there is browser specific settings. Well, I'm just going to copy them for now and see what it does. I'm going to remove the browser action. I don't think we're going to need it. I think that's for things that you actually trigger by clicking your extension, and that's not planned right now. Let's first have a settings page that's complicated enough. So we're going to rename the pop-up folder to settings. I think that's a much better name as well. And then we say, how does it do the path? Oh, just like that. Okay. So I can just put the path in there as well. So I say settings/index.html. So now it will use my index.html file for the settings. And we'll use the script and the style later. Just to see that it's really simple right now, I have a simple head section. And there's a body, which has a heading of filters. And then there's a list of filters, so a UL with LIs, list items. And there's a label that has a heading and a button, which is the switch that I showed earlier, and a little subtext that describes the filter. I'll show it later. I think I can even show it now in CodePen, just to give you an idea. Or do I still have a CodePen from it? I would not be surprised. CodePen is just the way I work with a lot. It's let's just create a pen. I use CodePen a lot because it just works to show simple stuff. It makes it possible to create a simple test case. Yeah, it really helps me in so many instances that I say, hey, let's just make a quick CodePen to test something. Access tools, here it is. So now copying the HTML and the CSS, and then it's going to complain that I also copied the head, and it doesn't want my head. Well, you got it anyway. So this is the basic idea of my settings page. It's simple, but it works. It's going to save it. It's going to refresh, always refreshing. So I'm going to share the pen. Not that you're going to make use of it, but hey, let's share all URLs that I have. So the extension is called Access Tools, which is a heading level 1, so a top heading. This is what names the page. Then there's a heading level 2, filters. There's going to be a lot more filters than this, I hope. And the first one now is described as no positive tab index because nobody wants it. What does it do? Positive tab index gets set to 0 instead, and there's this switch. Doesn't even switch. Interesting. It's a button. Why doesn't it switch? No idea. We'll check that later. Probably something in the CSS that it's not visible. I shouldn't touch it. Okay. I really feel like investigating, but first things first. So, and what is first? Well, we saw a typo. Typos are always first. Positive tab index gets set to 0 instead. So that's our settings page. And now I have to go back to the tutorial. Tutorial, where did you go? Implementing a settings page. Yeah, this is what we have. So here they repeat a bit of what I said already. Options UI, this sets an HTML document to be the settings page, like we did. Also called options page, yeah. Okay, great SEO text. Be found on multiple terms. Then there's permissions. We'll use the storage API to store the settings, yes, and we need to ask permission to use this API. That's exactly what we did. And browser-specific settings. You have to include an extension ID in order to save and retrieve settings from synchronized storage. Huh. Okay. I'm just gonna keep it what it is right now, I guess. I have no idea what impact it has if I put in a real email or something. And as it's all local, I guess I can stick to this right now. I don't have to have real settings yet. Next, because we've promised to provide options.html that's created. Yeah, I've got a file already. Create a file with that name inside the settings directory and give it the following contents. In the settings directory, so they assume there's already a settings directory. I don't see it. I'm just gonna keep it where it is. So they have an example. This defines a form with a labeled text input and a submit button. This also includes a script called option.js. Yeah. So here they create a form for their own extension, sort of, and they have option.js. Create option.js again in the settings directory. Now I'm curious. I'm just going to skip ahead a bit, see if we have this settings directory set up somewhere. See, so it's all in the same folder. Yeah, so we're not going to do that. Settings directory is just for all tutorial files. So this is what they have. I'm just going to copy it first and see what I'm copying later, because who cares what we copy, right? So we've got script.js. It's still called pop-up. I thought I renamed it to settings, but I probably canceled that. Permission denied. Ooh. See, this is the fun of being on Ubuntu under Windows. You get all this fun stuff with proper permissions and everything. Yeah, whatever. We'll keep it like this. But then we have to change the this as well. We'll keep it to pop-up right now. Okay, so what did they give us? What is this script? I see a function called save options. It says prevent default, so this is probably going to be some event or something, and it's going to prevent the default click. It says browser storage sync and set. The value color should be set to the value of document.querySelector color. Okay, so I'm just going to see where this comes back. I said probably a setting, yeah, here. Document query selector form, add event listener, submit, save options. So it basically says the moment that you, we're going to find a form, we're going to add an event listener to this form, and when you submit the form, we're going to run the function save options. Sounds logical. But then you want to prevent the default because the default is probably going to another page or reloading it or whatever. You don't want that. And then the moment that happens, you're going to set the storage, you're going to sync it, and you set the value color to whatever you have color set to on your page. That's easy. So do we have an idea for this one as well? So we're gonna have to set this idea and value in a few, I guess. Okay, and then what is the other one? The other function is restore options. When does that happen? That happens when the DOM content is loaded. So it adds an event listener to the document. The event is when the DOM, the DOM content is loaded, and it runs restore options. That's the function that we just had. And what does it do when it does restore options? It sets the current choice result. So result color or blue is saved in value. So it's gonna try, hey, is there a result color? If there's not, it's just gonna store blue. So this is like a default value. These two pipes mean that it's an OR function. And if it doesn't have anything for the first, it will try the second. And if there is an error, it will log an error. Okay. And then there's this getting, which is a variable where they put in a function, sort of, is browser storage sync get color. So you get the value of color. So getting is, okay, I'm not quite sure what this should be doing, but it says it below. When the document has loaded, it fetches the value of color from storage using storage sync get. So that's this one. If the value isn't set, it uses the default blue. That's this one. This retrieves the value from the sync storage area. So that's where it's where all the extension information is saved. When the user submits the form by clicking save, it stores the value of the text box using storage sync set. This saves the value to the sync storage area, just like we said. Makes me sound smart. Thank you, tutorial. Specifying a separate JS file is required. You cannot use inline JavaScript. That's good to know before you start testing stuff and it doesn't work. Well, this is why. You could store the setting values in local storage instead if you feel that local storage is preferable for your extension. No idea why. I don't know much about storage, but I'm just gonna follow the tutorial on this one. I'm also gonna grab this bit just to make sure we have everything in here. That's the bit of the switch. Makes the switch work. Where did it go? Oh, I didn't copy it. Copy. Paste. Yeah. So what did I write for the switch? It finds all buttons on the page, because I didn't need to be more specific than that. And for each button, it adds an event listener, a click. And then it grabs the target of the click. So whatever you click, it gets the attribute area checked. And if it is already set to true, it will be set to false. And if it's false, it will be set to true, aka it will toggle. And that's basically all it does, because it does all the styling on the toggle. So that's, does this still work? Yeah, see. So this is an example that works. And if I put it in here, will this one work as well? Yeah. Look at it go. So this is what we want. But instead of on submit, we want to select. Okay, let's see. So what we want is for each button to set itself. So we don't have this form. We don't have it. But what we can do is browser storage sync set, this thing that it does to save the settings. We get the same. This is where it shows that I'm no full hardcore full-time always all the time coder. I have to look at what we're actually doing here. So let's call this value tab index. And do we need a document query selector? I think not. We're just going to use the state. I think we can do it like this. So when somebody clicks the button, which are the switches that we have, it will set the browser.storage.sync. It will set the value for the tab index, and it will use the state that we had before to set it. But as this is a toggle, I think we should put these the other way around. We'll probably have to test this later, but if we're gonna keep it the same way, it will give us the opposite result that we want. So this should set the setting, what a name. And then we can remove this function because we have replaced it with our own. We can remove the last line for forms. And then we keep this bit for now. This is the part from the tutorial, and we're going to see what comes next. And I should indent this, but not this. So we've got the first part, that's generic switch behavior, including something specific for our own switch. Probably have to make this more generic. Is there like an ID? Do we set an ID? I'm just gonna call this tab index and this tab index. So the label is for tab index and the button has the ID tab index. And then can I just get the state? Oh, you're probably gonna have to help me here. Can I just get the idea of this element? Is it simple like l.id or something? Google to the rescue. ID of element JS. We're gonna resist clicking on W3 schools because yeah, element get attribute idea is that's not gonna work. That's not a nice way. No. Yeah, .id. Huh. Sometimes JavaScript is actually logical. I'm not gonna say too much, but yeah. Stack Overflow confirms what I thought already. Well, if Stack Overflow says it, then it should be right. So let's, do I even have to set it? No, I don't have to set it. I don't have to store it in a variable. I think I could just do this. Oh, but then we get the issue that it's not very, wait. So how do we put this cleanly? This is like my, I'm not really interested in programming, but converting one value to another type, pushing data around. It's all digital plumbing. I mean, I would say, hey, double space const ID is l.id, and then I would put ID here. But does that work? Does it convert? I don't think so, because it just had a word there. So I'm not even sure how to convert it here. That's how skillful I am. This might work. It expects a comma, of course. I'm not even sure how this works. So we're going back to the tutorial. So we need storage sync set. That's what we want to know more about. And we have to set a key. Does it set it here as well? Yeah, kitten monster. So this is like the short version. There's also brackets. Do we have these brackets? Yeah, there are these brackets. So they just split it up over multiple lines. So what's the easiest way? I'm very welcoming now to the chat to come with suggestions, because this is like, I bet Julien as a master coder has it all figured out. So when you get, you have to encapsulate the string. But when you set, it just takes a name. I could do a template literal, just because I'm... Otherwise I can Google this for ages. I think we're just going to go for a template literal, because that's like the easiest case right now. So template literal parses whatever you put in there. So if I put it like that, I'm not sure why it bugs out on this. Doesn't even convert this. Could that be? That could be. So I'm stuck at this complicated stage that everybody can fix except me. So it needs a word. Does it have more examples? Please help me, examples. Yeah, of course there's a Stack Overflow for it. Using a variable key name. Stack Overflow is basically made for me. Set object. Yeah, that's a way to do it, of course. Or you can use brackets. Of course. So if I put this, I don't need this. And it will just sort of evaluate it. Wow. This is real JavaScript. Okay. So this should use the ID of what we have in the index. And this is important because if we get more switches, if we get more filters, then we can scale it up like this. So that's that. I guess we go back to the tutorial, see where it goes. You could store the settings in here. Yeah, we finally update Borderify to read the border color. Yeah, that's nice. Okay, so we go to warning, a bug in Firefox versions prior to version 52. I think we're a bit ahead of that right now. What are we at? 78 or something? 81? I don't know. Oh, and this is okay. So the idea is here that you get the value while you're in the Browserify or Borderify JS. Does the Borderify JS load the other JS file? I don't think so, but let's check. I'm not seeing it. No. Okay, we go back down. Page down, page down. So what happens here? We've got this on error function that it logs an error. So what do we do? Can we just say like, so if we go to the content script, we could say this is what we want to do. So if it gets tab index, do we have enough brackets there? No, more brackets. And then we say so if it can get a positive value for tab index from the storage, then run the filter. That sounds like it should work. Saving this. So now I can make an if case for each filter that I add, which is really professional. But hey, what works, that works. Gonna go back to the tutorial. It should look something like this. Yeah, we got it slightly more complicated already. Reload the extension, load the web page, open the setting page, change the border color. I think we followed everything right now. This is the tutorial. Okay, so what do we have now? We have the manifest.json. It has a options UI, which loads a settings page. It sets the permissions in the storage. There's the index page where there's an event. I should actually incorporate the script here, not comment it out. That's that. And in the script, we have a first part that catches any click on the switch. Do we need the restore options part? I don't think so. Or does this set maybe also... Oh, there's one thing we need to do, of course. If somebody loads the settings page and we want all settings to be correct, yeah. So by default, a settings page is loaded with everything turned on. But what if a certain filter is turned off? It should reflect that, of course. So that's something I never do. So by default, all settings will look like they are turned on, even if they are turned off. So for each button, so we store options. How do we tackle this the easiest way? You basically want to loop over all things that are set. So everything in browser storage. Yeah, so you want for example, grab the tab index, see if it's true or false, and then set the switch accordingly. But how would we do that easily? Grab it from the content script. So we've got the, no, from the index. Yeah, so we're going to set the area checked. No, wait. It's in here. So we've got the element, and we want to set it to result.tab index false or true. I'm probably gonna have to pick the other one. It's always the wrong one when you pick one. So what do we do here? We find an element called tab index. We set the attribute area checked to either false or true depending on the result. So if this is true, set it to true. And if it's not, set it to false. Tab index, I think this does the trick. So I think this is all we need, but I wanna iterate over. Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, but I don't want to add this for every filter that I add. So settings page example. Is there more in this? No, this is the exact code that we have, only with British spelling. It's color with OU instead of just the O. But I don't want to be so specific. On the other hand, I don't have to get ahead of myself. Making one thing work is already like a challenge, so git status. What files did we change? Oh, here we go. Now it would be nice if we could rename some things before we push it. I always have to think with every Ubuntu setting. Copy pop-up to settings, is that it? So now folder settings with everything in there. Looks like it. Then we could have just used move. Blimey. Can we still use move? Yeah, that wasn't typo. Move pop-up settings, or of course not. Okay, so I'm gonna remove settings because I want to solve it this way. So using the CLI, so maybe Git helps me then. My own password. That's hard. I never use my password here. Got one more try. No. You can't. Well, then we're just gonna do it. Mine's our pop-up settings. all files saved. We have all files saved. We're gonna copy pop-up to settings. We get a new folder named settings, and we're gonna remove the folder pop-up. I don't care about your permissions. Git status. Yeah. So git add dot git status. So we've got all these things. Yeah, and it sees it as renamed, so that's pretty good. I'm gonna commit, and I'm gonna call it create settings page. Press enter right away, not because I wanted to, because I'm clumsy. And I'm gonna push it. And I'll test it later on a different computer where I can easily add it to the browser, but I think this is it. Open up the pull requests, feature settings page. It has accepted the push. I could merge it, but I don't want it yet. And there we see our changes with the comments removed. Storage sync added. Here also the console log removed because we don't need the console logs, I hope. Extra bit added to the manifest. Our fancy new index page. I'm gonna need a designer at some point. Somebody with actual skills in designing. Oh, it's gonna warn about all the new lines. Shall we add new lines to all? Is this ending with a new line? No, it's not. Otherwise we're gonna get warnings all the time. I'm just gonna amend this to the previous push. Git add dot git commit dash dash amend exit git push force. Yay, force pushing all the things and nobody's stopping me. So there's the whole HTML file in the settings folder. There's the script in the settings folder, the style in the settings folder. I'm gonna refresh once. I just added a new line. What are you talking about? Okay, so it's a bit confused apparently, but hey, whatever. I'm gonna keep it like this. I think that's it for today. I'm gonna test the actual result on a different device because that's easier for me and less boring for you. And thanks for being with me and being able to do this while streaming. I hope I can add more filters starting from this, because that's the goal. I have this whole list of possible filters, but without a settings page to turn them on and off, it's not really useful to add filters. Oh, I should name this to filter as well. If you have ideas for filters, please add them. The basic idea for a filter is that it should improve the browsing experience for people without making it worse for other people. That's, I guess, the short version. It's very hard to find something that helps everybody. So there might be some cases where you say, hey, it helps 99%, but maybe not 100%. Or on 99% of the websites, but not all of them. Please add it as a suggestion, and we can either see how to improve it, or we can say, hey, but we've got a button to turn it on and off. So maybe it's valuable for people to actually have the option. And it's better to have the option than to not have the option. So that's an open invitation. Please add some filters. I'm gonna stop the stream here and test it, and hopefully I can release this very soon. So thank you so far. Thank you for your patience, and good night.